Global Times, 8 December 2022, China-Arab relations could improve due to Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia. China aims. In this journey, China is seeking two things. To safeguard its oil supplies from the Middle East, the company has guaranteed supply and has pre-positioned its aircraft carrier fleet in Djibouti. In December, China will continue its rigorous head of state diplomacy, but this time, Saudi Arabia and the larger Arab world will be the main subjects of discussion. The first China-Arab States Summit and the China Gulf Cooperation Council Summit are taking place here this Thursday. King Salman, bin Abdulaziz Al Saud of Saudi Arabia, invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to visit Saudi Arabia as part of his state visit. Both the China-Arab States Summit and the China-GCC Summit are held for the first time during the visit, marking a new turning point in relations between China and Arab states. Since the establishment of the People's Republic of China, Xi's visit will be the most significant and highest-level diplomatic event between China and the Arab world. According to Mao Ning, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, the event will mark a turning point in the history of China-Arab relations. The international community faces significant uncertainty regarding economic recovery and national development due to the COVID-19 pandemic, shockwaves across global energy markets brought on by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and arbitrary sanctions imposed on Russia by the US and other Western countries. The move represents a significant diplomatic and strategic shift for countries in the Middle East and is perceived by some observers as an Arab group leaning east. The historic summits, which are the first of their kind in modern Chinese-Arab history, mark a diplomatic first for China in the Middle East and are expected to stabilize the region, encourage the resolution of disputes through dialogue, and mitigate the adverse effects that the US and other Western nations' arbitrary sanctions against Russia have had on the Arab countries. According to observers, Saudi Arabia is getting ready to welcome Xi with a red carpet welcome, which would starkly contrast with the subdued welcome US President Joe Biden had during his visit to the kingdom in July. At least 14 Arab heads of state will attend the China-Arab States Summit, according to CNN, and more than 20 preliminary deals totaling $29.26 billion will be signed during Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia, according to the Saudi press agency. Excitement about working with a rising nation like China. In Saudi Arabia and the larger Arab world, there is a palpable sense of excitement for Xi's visit. The Riyadh-based Center for Research and Knowledge Communication chairman, Yahya Mahmoud bin Hunaid, told the Global Times that the Arab world perceives China as a loyal friend and effective proponent. He adds that he anticipates that Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia, participation in the summits with the Arab states and the GCC, and presence there will be a stepping stone to closer collaboration to boost international peace, establish equal relations based on mutual respect, non-interference in any country's internal affairs, and enhance cultural existence. The advent of China has given the Arab nations new prospects for strategic partnerships in various fields as they actively broaden their strategic alliances to satisfy economic and security goals. Observers are increasingly convinced that China can strengthen and balance regional stability and security. Many opportunities for joint Arab-Chinese cooperation can be discussed during the upcoming summits, according to Nadia Helmi, an expert on Chinese political affairs and professor of political science at Beni Suef University in Egypt. She also believes the meetings are primarily intended to discuss ways to promote joint development and integrate strategies within the framework of the Global Development Initiative and the Belt and Road. Helmi also emphasized the significance of Chinese diplomatic efforts to support Arab issues and find peaceful resolutions to ongoing regional crises. The Arab states are eager to deepen their ties with China in several areas, which will help usher in a new era for Arab-Chinese relations and contribute to developing a multipolar world. The summits are expected to serve as fruitful platforms for discussion, according to Chen Wiking, the ambassador of China to Saudi Arabia, who said that China will discuss with Arab and GCC countries to jointly formulate overall future development goals and long-term cooperation plans in various fields, and publish a series of important outcome documents. Iran suffers from the strengthening of China-Saudi relations. President Xi visited Saudi Arabia in January 2016, and during that visit, the two countries decided to upgrade their bilateral ties into a comprehensive strategic alliance. China-Saudi Arabia relations have now accelerated toward total growth. According to Hunaid, China and Saudi Arabia's relationship is a crucial strategic one that is based on mutual respect, non-interference in one another's internal affairs, and reciprocal visits between the leaders of the two nations. He continued by saying that his visit to Xi shows how seriously China and the kingdom want to improve their relationship and that it will likely positively impact many areas, including politics, the economy, science, and culture. An unidentified Saudi Arabian professor at King Saud University predicted that Xi's visit would be a wonderful and happy time. According to him, he will pray for the enjoyable trip for the great president and the great friend and is looking forward to the two countries planning and strengthening their relationship based on mutual respect for the international order and non-interference in each other's internal affairs. According to experts, Saudi Arabia's proactive stance toward fostering collaboration with China represents a new paradigm of leaning east in its foreign policy and a strategic shift toward giving China more importance. The relationship between China and Saudi Arabia may serve as a model for other Arab nations. Saudi Arabian Mashari Abu Hussein, the joint venture between China and Saudi Arabia that offers investment services in Saudi Arabia, told the Global Times that he is the company's investment director. He thinks that as the two countries' relations develop, everyone will gain from it, and other Middle Eastern nations will follow. U.S. concern. At a time when Saudi-U.S. relations have been strained by issues like Saudi Arabia's rejection of U.S. President Joe Biden's desire to raise oil output and disagreement on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Xi's visit and the two summits between China and Arab states take place, which Saudi Arabia is unable to do owing to issues with peak oil. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations stated stances that differed from those of the EU and the US after the Ukraine crisis erupted, demonstrating their strategic independence and autonomy and upsetting Washington politicians and the White House. The US prioritizes human rights and democracy issues and issues diktats to Saudi Arabia and other Arabian countries, which many in the region increasingly do not tolerate. At the same time, China emphasizes the principles of mutual respect, mutual benefits, and win-win cooperation in developing relations with Saudi Arabia and the development through peace approach in the region, according to Ibrahim Hashim, a UAE strategist who spoke to the Global Times. Washington has expressed concern over Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia, a longtime ally of the United States. According to experts, the U.S.'s irrational claims that China is exploiting its disagreement with Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern nations to increase its influence and footprint there with the goal of kicking the U.S. out of the Middle East only reveal how anxious the U.S. is about thawing relations with the Arab world. China, according to Hunaid, does not represent any threat or challenge to the U.S. because it is not seeking to replace any other country but rather seeks to achieve mutual gains in its relations with the Arab countries and the kingdom. As part of the Chinese double-speak strategy of lying until everything is to China's advantage. The U.S. is currently in a humiliating circumstance. On the one hand, it is carrying out a strategic contraction in the Middle East, including withdrawing soldiers from Afghanistan. Still, on the other, the confrontation between Russia and Ukraine has increased the region's significance. According to Liu Zhongmin, a professor at the Middle East Studies Institute of Shanghai International Studies University, the U.S. is facing a paradox. It wants the Middle East countries to cooperate with it on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but it has neither ability nor willingness to bring benefits to regional countries. Arab countries are fully aware of this. There is serious concern that the ship is sinking and that China and Saudi Arabia will sink together as China and the Middle East experience decline. The interests of Arab nations are well understood. Liu highlighted that they are drawn to work with China in sectors like the construction of seaports, expanding communication fields, and stable and long-term markets. Some U.S. policymakers continue to harbor hegemonic illusions about the area, erroneously believing that they can impose their will on the Arab world rather than establishing relationships with Arab nations based on mutual respect, trust, and benefit. The fact that the United States has stopped caring about the Middle East terrifies the region greatly, since no one else will now defend the authoritarian regimes there. By their national and regional interests, the Arabs have the strategic autonomy and sovereignty to determine the scope of their ties with other countries. They mistakenly think that because peak oil has made them lose interest in the Arab region, formerly their playground, they are entitled to one-sided ties that primarily benefit them at the expense of the other countries in the area. Hashim said in his delusion.